Greetings, my name is Brock Meyer, not Barack Obama, not even spelled the same, and the last name Meyer, much like Oscar Mayer. I'm going to be presenting learning styles today. And what works best for me is really some visual aids. Anything is a bonus when you're doing PowerPoint because it's easy to bore your students or to uh, kill them with a PowerPoint. So we're going to use some visual aids today as we get started. Neil Fleming, this man, teacher in New Zealand, he's alive today, he's attributed with the most widely known learning style, VARK, or Visual Auditory Reading and Writing Kinesthetic Learning Style. He travels all over the world and promotes this particular learning model. And here's another way of looking at the styles of learning for those of you that desire a different method. You have the visual learners, the auditory learners, those who read and write learners, and the kinesthetic learners. So, visual learners, it's a learning style in which information is linked with imagery and other visual aids to facilitate learning. A good example would be monkey see, monkey do. And they've proven this, scientists have proven this, that the best way that humans learn is by observation. So we observe our environment around us, especially as young children or even babies. This is primarily the way in which we learn. And studies have also shown that visual aids can improve retention, reading comprehension, student achievement, critical thinking. Visual spatial thinkers, they need to see to think. Bette Fetter, she's an author. Visual thinking matters. You know, one student may see 1 plus 1 equals 2. Another student's going to see a block plus a block equals 2 blocks. And then he can translate it onto paper, 1 plus 1 equals 2. And this is where even visual aids really play a part in a presentation or a PowerPoint, is your learners can identify with the information that you're presenting. It's not just dry information or numbers that can be difficult to grasp or understand. But you know, the visual learner can now see that the 15% is much smaller than the 50% of X, Y, and B that you're presenting. How about the auditory learner? This is a learning style in which a person learns through listening naturally. Great at listening to audible signals and change in tone. Usually these people are good at comprehending what's said in a lecture, or even children as they're being taught in front of the teacher in the classroom. Oral exams, they memorize phone numbers well. Storytelling, they're great storytellers. And speech pattern phrases that you'll hear would be, I hear you, that clicks, it's ringing a bell, that makes sense. These are all confirmations of an auditory learner. They move their lips, and they often talk to themselves while accomplishing a task. So a great transition from that auditory learning to the reading and writing would be this particular slide. As you're now sitting here, you're actually reading this auditory cloud here and finding different words that stick out in your mind. You're processing them. And as the name implies, these learners are great at assimilating information via reading and writing. This is a facet of visual learning, but it's much on a cognitive level. And this is huge in education. I mean, what professor have you ever had that did not have a book for you to read from, or some assignment to read, or to write a report? I think that we have underestimated how important reading and writing have been in the education setting, and it's been around for thousands of years. So some people are good at reading a book and others taking a test, while some people need a little bit more help. There's those that just do not do well with book work, or those that do not do well with classic testing. So this is where we look into some other areas. Here you can see somebody reading a book here and assimilating that information, all really important in learning. And even those writing down on a chalkboard, 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 2 equals 4. These are all facets of the reading-writing learning style. And even going back to the elementary basics of your education, you can remember what a Venn diagram is, or how many do you remember what a Venn diagram is? It's that A and B, and when you overlap them, that space in the middle, both A and B. Now this is representative, I believe, of how most people learn. Nobody is really all in one camp. Nobody is really all in one learning style. It's a combination of many learning styles in which all of us learn. We're stronger in some particular ones, but there is overlap. in how we learn. And here's an example. All living things have important thing in common. They all possess tiny structures that cannot be seen with the naked eye. Plants and trees rely on these structures to grow tall. Plants use these structures to miraculously convert light energy from the sun to simple sugars they use as food. Fish use these structures to carry out their lives in water, and even large animals such as elephants, bears, and sea lions depend upon these structures to move, grow, and reproduce. What are these structures on which all life depends? Here's one more clue. They are often called the building blocks of life. These structures are called cells. So I've just read to you a paragraph. You were listening, you were engaged, and maybe you were reading along with me, taking notes. And also there's a visual component of this. You're looking at the picture, you're discovering, you're taking in all this information. So this is a combination of different learning styles. And then what about the kinesthetic learning style? It's a hands-on practical learning. It's otherwise known as tactile learning. So according to one source, these are the doers. They only make up about 5% of the population. I don't agree with that statistic, 5% of the population, because I believe a lot more of us are kinesthetic learners than we would realize. So examples would include planting and growing a garden. This is an incredible example. Getting dirty with your hands, per se, out in the garden. That you're going to learn a lot. Learn a lot about yourself, about life. Learn a lot about horticulture or agriculture or arboriculture, whatever it is that you're into. And this is just a great learning style. What about Legos? Legos are an incredible creative tool, and they've been around for a while now. But kids, children of all ages, all around the world, whoever invented Legos was genius. And this is an incredible learning tool. It's very mechanical, very methodical. You have to use your hands to build and create and put together. And then even 80% of kids are visual tactile learners. So it's that visual tactile. They're very visual, but they're very tactile. They observe their surroundings and how they learn, but they also are very hands-on how they learn. And that could be a lot of people, not just children. So especially if adults are well to remember that if we retain some of those childlike qualities, we do better in life. So what about carpentry? Carpentry, construction, there's a lot of vocational trades that are very kinesthetic. If you think about the carpenter, he uses his hands. There's not much, that's the primary method of learning that he's using. He uses visual, and there may be some auditory involved here and there, but for the most part, it's really a kinesthetic learning style. And there's also many other vocational trades. Take, for instance, our profession in EMS. We are definitely falling in the kinesthetic category, but at the same time we're falling in the kinesthetic category, we also fall into the reading and writing category. How much paperwork is generated from this call right here? All of you guys know that it's quite a bit. So you're going to learn many different ways, even in EMS. So identifying and understanding one's personal learning style may save many students frustration and wasted time. How do you learn? That's the question. So I hope this answered some of those questions, and thank you for giving me your time, your ears, and your eyes. I'm sorry I didn't have much for the hands-on, but perhaps you can fiddle around with your pen and your pencil next time while you're listening to a lecture. Thanks.